Hello everyone, my name is Jade Goodhue and welcome to another episode of What's Going On in Lake Geneva, and I'm with John Trione of the Lake Geneva Balloon Company, known for being the first class adventure of the sky. So why don't you tell us about your business?
Well, we've been in business now we're coming up on our 23rd year in 2024. Yeah. It's been a ride, literally. I never had any kind of inkling about hot air ballooning at all. My wife and I were celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary. This goes back, a number of years, obviously. And I was looking for I wasn't into hot air ballooning, but I am a romantic. And I thought, 10 years, I got to do something killer. And I saw a hot air balloon advertisement. I thought, we'll do that. And we got up in the air on the first try. And it was just me and my wife and the pilot and his wife. His wife was driving the chase vehicle. And we were 15 minutes into this thing. And I looked at my wife and I said, I got to do this. And she said, well, we are doing it. I said, no, I'm going to learn how to fly a hot air balloon. And I'm going to start a business in Lake Geneva selling hot air balloon rides. I was that sure of it. I didn't even know if I could fly a hot air balloon, let alone, run a company.
So that's where it comes from. It was literally love at first sight.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I was bit. They call it being bit by the ballooning bug. And I got it bad. I went to work for the guy as a crew guy 3 days later after we got back from the weekend away.
Whoa.
And started crewing for him. And then I started my training in late summer of that year. So this was like June 27th. That was my anniversary. Okay. And by September, I plunked down $20,000 and bought a hot air balloon with some of my retirement money, and the rest is history. We've been going 20 plus years. Is
that how much a hot air balloon costs? $20,000?
I wish. So this was
just a little bit of inflation.
This is 24 years ago, and I bought a used hot air balloon, so it was a few years old. It was $19,000, but I got the trailer, the inflation fan. I mean, everything came with it. It was turnkey. To give you a comparison, I bought a brand new hot air balloon 2 years ago. Now, the first one was 4 passengers. This is 8. And it was closer to about $85,000. So they're not cheap.
Wow.
Yeah. But you want to have first class equipment. I love flying a brand new balloon. I never have. I've always bought, slightly used. But I thought it was time that I spoiled myself a little bit, my customers. And
absolutely.
I got this beautiful balloon that we call the Geneva Jester.
I love it. Yeah. And there's so many inflation jokes we can make on that about prices.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And balloons.
Yes. We charged, I think, $155 back in 20 some years ago per person, and we're now at $320 per person. So
okay.
It's not a cheap thing to do. We have a very short window of opportunity to balloon in Wisconsin. Most of the ballooning occurs between mid-June and mid-September. Okay. So we only really have 4 months to make our hay. And honestly, we're starting to see some, I think, effects of climate change encroach on that time. All of us Midwest pilots are reporting that we're flying less than we did 10, 15 years ago. And it's due to weather conditions.
What kind of weather conditions is really encroaching on that window?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are factors that come into play. We fly at dawn, like right at sunrise, and then just a couple hours before sunset. Beginning of the day, the end of the day. We never fly in the middle of the day at all. Too windy. You get thermal activity, rising columns of hot air, because the sun heats up a parking lot differently than it does a lake or a field, and you don't want to fly in that. It's dangerous. So we fly at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. We want landing speeds to be less than 8 miles an hour with passengers.
Okay.
That means the wind speed sometimes has to be even less than that. So we're looking at very calm winds. I want to be able to look into the forecast and see that we're free from any type of developing thunderstorm within about 75 to 100 miles. Mm-hmm. Literally, a thunderstorm can collapse near Madison and push a gust front of wind that would reach us here. It might be bright and sunny here, but they got a little rain showers or thunderstorm going on in Madison. Uh-huh. I have to be aware of that because it could impact our flight operations here. So you have to be an amateur meteorologist.
I was just about to ask about that. You really had to learn that aspect.
None of my friends ask me about the weather anymore because I go into a long dissertation about the conditions and how things are going to change, and it's usually more than they want. It's usually a really casual conversation they're looking for. Now, given that, at the end of October when we stop flying balloons until I pick it back up in May, I don't pay attention to the weather at all. Somebody say, "Hey, we're having a snowstorm." I'm like, "Really?" But during the summer flying season, I'm checking 6-7 times a day.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So along that on weather, I've always been curious. What's the temperature change on the ground versus in the balloon when you guys are up there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So most people assume that it's going to get much colder as we go up through the atmosphere. That is generally true. But in hot air ballooning, we're looking for days, especially in the morning, when they have what they call a temperature inversion. And it's actually cooler on the surface than it is above the surface.
Wow.
And when we get these temperature inversions set up, the calm air stays really close to the ground, 1,000, 1,500 feet and below. You might have 25 or 30 miles an hour at 1,500 feet, but because of that temperature difference, the wind stays calm on the surface. And those are ideal conditions. It gives us great steerability because the wind shear is changing the direction of travel, and we can actually steer the balloon. We never go against the wind, but the wind conditions change either wind speed or direction at various altitudes. So there's a lot of times
like a rip current in the ocean. That makes sense.
So usually, if it's a good morning, it's about 10 degrees warmer than it is above the surface on a morning flight. In the afternoon, there's really not much difference. I tell people, whatever you're wearing comfortable on the ground, you'll be comfortable up in the air.
So that's the highest you go is about 1,000.
Oh, no. We will take people up to 5,000-6,000 feet. Only if there is a wind current that I need to steer me into a direction that's favorable for landing spots.
Okay.
Generally, for me, it's 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet or below. And a lot of it has to do with just there's more to see, right? People can see the wildlife. They can talk to people as they're flying over their farms or whatever. We generally will only go high if we need a good steering wind to take us a direction. But, sometimes people want to see the lake, the Chicago skyline and the Milwaukee skyline and the Michigan shoreline, Lake Michigan shoreline. So we'll go up to several thousand feet and get a look at that, if we can do that.
That's cool. So along that, what's your typical route?
Yeah. So we typically try to fly back towards Lake Geneva, because we know there's a lot of landing sites here. We know there's parks. We know there's, the churchyards, these kind of places where we can land. The city is very, the private citizens and the city are very amenable to us doing our operations. Very cool. So that's very helpful. So what we do is we analyze the wind. If it's coming out of the northeast, I go up to the Burlington airport. And we fly back along the White River, back to Lake Geneva. Very cool. If it's out of the west, we'll go out to Williams Bay, to the church that's out there at the west end of Lake Como, Calvary. And we'll launch and fly right down Lake Como back towards Lake Geneva or even towards Burlington. The northwest, we go up to Elkhorn. So you can see we've got launch sites all around the clock face, if you will, or the compass rose, right? And if the wind is coming out of that direction, we'll go up there. It's almost like Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. I want to make sure that when I'm in an hour, 45 minutes to an hour into the flight, I've got several places that I can look at and say, okay, we can land there. That's a good spot. That's a good spot. It's all about the landing.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yeah.
I'll bet.
Because we don't have permission. We never know exactly where we're going.
Oh, and you have to communicate that to the people around.
So the chase crew gets out in front of me, and we'll talk. And he'll say, okay, what do you think? And I say, well, there's a house on the west side of the road, white house, red barn, which is a joke because all houses around here on farms are white with red barns, but we still do it and all laugh. I'll say, go up to the door, ask the farmer if it's okay to land his hayfield. Or it might be somebody's private property, a 5-acre, house with, big lot, and we'll have them go up and knock on the door and ask.
So what's your craziest landing story?
Craziest landing story? So when I was brand new, I was at the U.S. Nationals competition. So this doesn't involve commercial operations where we're carrying.
But that's right. You were racing. You were doing balloon racing.
Yeah, I did a lot of balloon racing in the early days. It really sharpened my skills to make sure that I was, a good, safe pilot for. And so anyway, we were at the Nationals, and I was in second place. And it was the last 3 flights of the week. It was a whole 9-day event. And they won't launch if the winds are above 10 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. They scrubbed the flight. But the winds were 9 miles an hour on the surface. They were 30-something at maybe a couple hundred feet above the surface. Well, once somebody decides to launch, the race is on. If no one launches, it's a scrubbed flight and no points are deducted or anything. But if one guy launches, then you got to make a decision. You're going to go, you're not going to go. Well, I went. I went to stay in second place. Well, we flew. We missed the target badly. It wasn't even close to being steerable to get to the target. And I came down on the corn top, just above the corn. Mm-hmm. And this is before GPS. So we didn't have GPS. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have any of that kind of stuff.
You had your Thomas guide.
Yeah, we had a map, paper map, and a radio. And I'm talking to my crew chief who's in the chase vehicle tracking alongside me parallel. Mm-hmm. And she's going exactly as fast as I'm going. And she goes, hey, you want to know how fast you're going? I said, no, not really. So you're going 35 miles an hour, and I'm right above the corn top. So I know that I'm going to land fast. And we finally found a hayfield. We dragged 3 football fields before the balloon slowed down and stopped. And it was fine. I mean, it wasn't a hard hit. Mm-hmm. It was just a fast hit. And once those balloons, we call the fabric part of the balloon an envelope. And so once the envelope starts to deflate, it acts as a sail because it's now limp. And so the wind catches that and pulls the basket through the field. So we had to have a big hayfield to land in.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So what's the ideal speed to land at?
Personally, I like a good 3-4 mile an hour landing.
Okay.
On a morning flight, I can land in somebody's driveway at that speed. And believe me, I come over some houses, 5-6 feet off the roof line and plunk it right down in their driveway, and they're amazed. Wow, I can't believe you did that.
Can you do that for customers?
Oh, yeah.
Just drop them down and...
Yeah. Wherever the best space is, 9 times out of 10, homeowners are thrilled that we're at their house.
That's so cool.
Right. And we've asked, mm-hmm. And sometimes they come out and take pictures with us. We get the whole family out there. Sometimes they help us pack up, which is really cool. But I like those nice steering landings. I love landing in neighborhoods. I love landing in cul-de-sacs. Farmers can be a little problematic. It's their livelihood. Uh-huh. And I understand that. And they don't want to introduce risk into that equation.
For sure.
If I land and somebody gets hurt.
Yep.
So we always, I grew up on a farm, so I understand farmers.
Totally get it.
And we always ask permission. And if they deny it, we move on and go somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can always land in my area.
Yeah,
right across the street from a church. So it's this big open area. I'll help you pack.
Thank you.
So getting back to your story, you're a great storyteller, by the way. What was it like when you first got started with the business?
At first it was about learning how to fly a balloon safely, right, and doing it well. Mm-hmm. And I worked hard at that. I mean, I went on the race circuit. I went all over the country, the Midwest, all these balloon races. I flew as much as I could. Mm-hmm. I flew 100 hours my first year. I don't know anybody in the Midwest flew that many. Normally a pilot in the Midwest gets about 50 hours, 60 hours in a year. Mm-hmm. That would be professionals. Most of the weekend warrior type guys, they might get 20 hours in a year, 30 hours in a year tops. And I flew 100 that first year, but I wanted to become very proficient at my thing. After that, it was starting a business. Mm-hmm. I'd never run a business before. I had no idea. And so then it was the passion about learning to run this business in addition to learning, how to fly balloons. And now, and then it was about building a team. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have a good team, your business is not going to be an exceptional business. And I built this great team of people. Some of these guys have been with me over 20 years. Yeah, we don't have a lot of turnover. And a lot of young people who I was their first employer. Proud of that. And now, we've created a really great business. I fly well. Mm-hmm. I'm always learning, so I never put that away. Lifelong learner. I'm always going to be adding new things. But now it's about the reaction you get from the people who have just experienced something that I've experienced 1,500 times, right? I get to see it through their eyes, and they're amazed. I mean, in 20 years and thousands of passengers, maybe 1 or 2, I swear, didn't like the experience. And that's it. Thousands of people. And so you get that kind of that, I don't know, that high a little bit, from what they're getting, because they're thrilled, and so all those things come together, and it keeps me engaged, and it keeps me, that's my purpose. I didn't know that was my purpose. But when I look back at it, how many engagements we've done, weddings we've done in the air, grandpa with grandkids, bucket list items, we've spread ashes, we've done it all.
Gosh.
We're a part of people's celebration of life and a part of their lifelong memories. And so we don't take that lightly. I don't. Yeah, it's fun.
That's beautiful. I had no idea that people get married, they spread ashes.
I'm a registered officiant.
Are you really?
The only reason I did that was to marry people in the balloon. And quite honestly, I've married more people on the ground than in the balloon. But I've probably done a half dozen weddings in the balloon. And in engagements, I've lost count. It's in the hundreds.
Has anyone ever objected to the bride and groom while you're in the air?
No, that would be a very uncomfortable flight, considering we probably got another hour to go. And you just don't know. No, I did have one guy who I can always tell when there's an engagement because the guy's always so nervous, And
they don't tell you?
Oh, they usually do.
Okay.
No, they usually do, like when they book it. And so I kind of know it's an engagement, or I do know. And this guy called me the day of the flight, and he says, "I just want to prep you that she may say no. I don't want you to be nervous." And I go, "Well, now I'm nervous." I said, if there's any question, but we'll make it happen. And they got there, and they looked like brother and sister. Like there was no, you were worried about it, right?
Okay.
And I've seen every kind of proposal imaginable, right? I've seen them all. I've seen him cry. I've seen her cry. I've seen them both cry. I've seen them both laugh. I've seen everything. This guy started his in a very unique way. He apologized. It was an apology. And then he rolled into it. I'm a salesman, okay? You're not going to lead with the apology.
Oh, no.
So anyway, so a few weeks later, he came and joined us at a balloon festival we were at in Grays Lake. And he called me ahead of time and says, we didn't get a lot of pictures from the engagement. Can we bring our photographer out and get pictures with the balloon? And I said, yeah, come on out. Well, now they look like a couple. So whatever was going on, it got resolved. They look like, okay, they're, They
didn't want to bring a photographer in case she said no?
No, I guess I just didn't want to hire, because it gets canceled a lot, right? So you're rearranging. 7 or 8 times is not unusual for a balloon ride to get canceled.
Uh-huh.
And so if you schedule somebody, it's going to be moved around a lot. So this way they knew we were on the ground, and, they'd get a picture with the balloon. So.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it'll be in the book.
So what surprised you most about this business?
What has surprised me the most about this business? On a personal basis, it's taken a guy who didn't have a lot of patience for anything. I mean, I want it now, right? And on a personal basis, it really has made me very patient. I'm completely present in the balloon. That's been a big surprise. And everything that's going on in life around me is gone. I mean, there's only that balloon, those 8 people in the basket, and me working the challenge of finding a safe spot to land, while at the same time saying, and there's a stone manor here, blah, 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 doing the whole spiel, right? But I think the thing that surprised me the most is how much of my life it would consume.
But just between May and October.
Well, yeah, really. No, really, because I've always worked a full-time job. I mean, I've never just ballooned. It's hard to do in the Midwest. But if you would have told me how many hours and things that I would have given up to make this dream become a reality, that would have been a huge surprise to me. I've done it willingly. I mean, I love it, and the results are the tens of thousands of people who have gone with us and just, said it was the greatest thing we've ever done. Can't wait to do it again.
So no regrets?
No regrets. No, not at all. I'm the captain of a ship. I've got this great crew of 25 people that are family, and we enjoy each other's company. We enjoy ballooning and doing it very well. So there's a high standard. And so there's, it was a choice I made. And in some ways, like I said, it just seems like it was my destiny to be this. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you do that. I went from taking my wife on a balloon ride to, devoting my entire life to the sport of hot air ballooning.
So what drives that high standard? Because I've looked at your reviews, they're all wonderful. They can't sing better praises. So what drives that for you?
Well, first of all, I like to be very good at what I do. It's an inner thing that I want people to have a great time. You know, I recognize the value of doing something well. And I've worked in all kinds of businesses. I've advised businesses over my years. And especially when I was young and helping business owners market their businesses, I saw a lot of businesses who started off with like this huge energy, right? And 3 years later, they're out of business. And I studied that a lot. I said, okay, what changed that? And how did they do that? And a lot of times it was just simply they just didn't understand their business and they didn't execute it. And you have to understand what's important, what's not important, you know. And I think I honed into that really quickly. And a lot of it had to do with the quality. And the big part of it is safety, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You can fly safely for 25 years, but you make one bad decision, especially in the era of social media, you know, it's going to spread. And so we want to make sure that we always do things in the proper way. And I think that our crew does. You know, we only have people around there that really want to do it well.
And you have a perfect record.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I have a perfect record because I'm not afraid to call people and cancel them. Sometimes
that's huge.
Yeah. Another decision I made early on was not to take on any debt to support this company because I never wanted to be in a situation where I said I have to fly because I have to pay a bill. I don't have to do that. You know, if the weather doesn't look good, I cancel the flight. That eliminates a lot of the risk that you're taking on just by knowing that the weather conditions are marginal. Could I get the flight in safely? Yeah, probably. But there is a higher than chance that the winds will pick up or something will happen based on what I'm seeing in the weather. And that's really what it is weather. Equipment failures, pilot error, that kind of thing, it all goes back to weather. It really does. So you got to know the weather. You
do. But you know what? That actually speaks a lot to your character in the sense of, I'm sure you've heard the stories of the guides for Mount Everest.
Yeah.
You know, where they know bad weather's coming in or maybe something is going on or these people are too inexperienced, but it's big money. And, you know, they have to make their overhead, but they don't want to cancel it or they're too afraid to or they've got shareholders, that sort of thing. And ultimately, it's led to some really tragic accidents.
Yeah, and I'm a student of Everest expeditions. I'll watch.
Are you really?
I'll watch anything that has to do with Mount Everest, and not that I'm a mountain climber, but I'm interested in the psychology that goes on behind those kind of guys and gals. You're right. You know, you can never put the interest of your ego and your pocketbook ahead of the safety of not only the passengers but also the crew. You know, because if I get up there and get into trouble and I have to make a fast landing in a tight space somewhere and my crew is assisting with that landing, meaning they're going to put weight on the basket as soon as I hit the ground so we don't push forward into something, I'm putting their safety at risk as well. So, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you would think people would get that because it's literally not just your reputation and your company at stake. It's literally your lives, your team, your crew, yourself. I mean, is one summer really worth it? So
I explain to people that, it's taken a long time to build up a reputation for being safe and great. And I'm not going to just push it away, because of a bad decision. So being a good decision maker and having the fortitude to have the difficult decisions with people who spent money in a hotel room the night before. They've already spent a couple $100 to come here. The balloon ride is expensive. And now I'm telling them that we're not going. And, but I can have those hard decisions or those hard talks with people.
Well, from a business standpoint, I think you do a great job too, just setting the expectation because it's all over your website. Like, hey, if it's bad weather, we're not going to go. So they understand that, well, you should have built a couple-day flexibility into this, maybe. So
it's really about teaching people about ballooning.
Education.
Yep.
So what's something that most people don't know about your business?
I think most people just assume that if they sign up for a date, they're going to go on that date. I did. And honestly, had I been canceled 7 or 8 times, I don't know that I would have become a balloon pilot. Who knows? Would my patience have worn off about, we've been canceled again? We went on our first try. So, and I was never told that by the people that sold me the
It's not like an airline ticket.
Right. So I think that's surprising to most people what the specific weather conditions are for safe balloon flight, and that 7 to 8 cancellations is fairly average. And I think that surprises people. But as you said, I make a point of it on the website and in all of our contacts with the customers to explain that's a part of the adventure, honestly. I mean, I wish I lived in New Mexico or Arizona and I could fly, 400 times a year. We just don't get that kind of weather here.
Yeah. I find if you set the expectation up front and educate them, like you said, like they know it's going to happen and it just normalizes.
Oh, totally.
The whole process.
It really is about, an educated customer is our best customer, really, because they understand why we're doing what we're doing.
Exactly. I love that. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah.
So what are some of your goals for next year?
My goals for next year are simply to, continue operating the way that we have. We took a little hiatus this year, so we didn't fly as much as we have in the past, but for the first time in 25 years, I actually had a time to sit back and think, okay, where do I want this to go?
Yeah.
It was all about growth. I wanted to add pilots. I wanted to have a physical location. We did both of those things. I gave up the physical location this year because we want to kind of kick the ball down the court a little bit and maybe find something that we can own. This year I think it's just getting flights up in the air and doing it safely. And starting to look to the future for a possible new physical place for us to call home.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So what are some organizations that you've either partnered with or that you'd like to thank?
Well, first of all, Visit Lake Geneva.
Of course.
I joined Visit Lake Geneva right away. It was probably the first check I wrote 24 years ago. It was even before I officially incorporated, because I recognized the value of chambers of commerce and destination marketing organizations. Huge. The local businesses in town have been really supportive of us. We require the use of people's property. So the local residents, when I call them up and say, hey, I know you got a great big field out there. Do you mind if we launch our balloon there? And 99% of the time, they're cool with it, So yeah, it's the local people embracing the business.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, so switching gears, what are some odd requests that you've gotten from your clients?
We get a lot of people calling who want to jump out of the balloon.
Oh, that would be so fun. Do you allow
parachutes? I do not. Only because I've got so many people that are on the list for me to fly. And it's really hard to land an 8-passenger balloon with one person in it. So if I drop off 6 skydivers or 7 skydivers, I'm alone in the balloon now, and I've got to land this big balloon that's normally filled with 9 people. So that's a weird request. And bungee jumping, which I absolutely would never do. It's hard on the equipment. My insurance would be void. There's just no way that I'm going to, put all that at risk.
Is that actually written into the provisions of your insurance?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the insurance says specifically no bungee jumping.
I'm not the only one that has thought of it. Okay.
Yeah. There are some companies outside of the United States and some in the United States that do it, but they're putting people at risk, and it's not something that, that I'm interested in doing.
For sure.
But we've had requests for nude balloon rides.
Yeah. Okay.
Not done that. We're a family operation, so we try to keep it at that level. I have teenagers who work for me, and moms and grandpas, and it's like I could probably make a lot of money doing it, but that's something we'll do. I think a lot of it is just especially the special requests of an engagement, right? So sometimes the guy who's doing the proposal will bring like a banner, and he'll want this banner spread out on the ground as we fly over, and he'll say, "Oh, what's that say? Oh, marry me, whatever." Well, sometimes it's almost impossible to get that banner out in front of the balloon because the balloon's changing directions. And my poor crew are running into this field with this thing, and this girl's like, what are they doing? I said, they're putting on a target. We're just practicing the target, and then we missed it. We go in another direction. So they'd pick it up and run it off and go put it in another field. And finally, we flew over it, and she goes, wait a minute, it says something. Will you marry me? Oh, somebody's getting married. And she looked over, her boyfriend's down on his hands and on his knees. And
oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's just things like that. Special things that people want to do to make it even more special than it already is.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and we will do it. We'll do whatever it takes. If we can do it legally, we'll do most anything to make their day special. So
what do you think customers love the most about your business?
I think customers love the fact that that when they come out, well, the experience from the website through customer contact, through rescheduling, all of that process is handled in a professional manner. We're all in uniform. It looks good, right? There's a good presentation, and there's a confidence level that they initially have, from the whole process. And let's be honest. I mean, no one asks me if I have a balloon pilot's license. No one asks me if I have insurance. There's a trust level there that I know what I'm doing. Of course I do. Both. I fly balloons. I've done 1,500 flights. I have insurance. But it's amazing how many people don't ask. They're just assuming. So you want to be able to portray that kind of confidence, that kind of professionalism on all of it. Yeah.
I never thought about that. You have to have balloon insurance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. And, you pray that you never have to use it, of course.
Of course.
But I want to make sure that if something did go awry, that people are taken care of.
Of course.
Yeah.
So switching gears again. So where are you from?
I'm from the St. Louis area. I grew up near St. Louis, Missouri, on the Illinois side.
Okay.
Southern Illinois. And born and raised. And my first ballooning was the Great Forest Park Balloon Race in St. Louis. It's one of the oldest balloon races. And of course, it was always on television as a little kid. So that's the first memory I have of hot air balloons, was knowing of that hot air balloon race in St. Louis.
Very cool. So what brought you to Lake Geneva?
Yeah, it's a weird story. I got out of college, got married right out of college. My wife was living in Woodstock, Illinois, just south of the border. And we would drive through Lake Geneva all the time on little day trips through Wisconsin, go to Milwaukee or whatever. And I said, oh man, we'd love to live there. What would you do, for a living? And I got a job in pharmaceutical sales, and it was based in Wisconsin, and they wanted me to move across the border. And we moved east of town in Wheatland.
Okay.
And lived there and raised our kids. I got divorced 12 years ago, and there was really only one option for me. It was Lake Geneva, because it's such a cool place. And my business was here. So that's how I ended up here in Lake Geneva. And I love it. I love living in the town. I love being a part of the community.
Very cool. So lake ballooning, life has its highs and lows.
Absolutely.
What have been some of your greatest challenges? What did you learn?
I think some of the greatest challenges are that nothing ever really goes the way you plan it. So there has to be flexibility. You've got to be able to adjust and pivot and understand that. Now, after 20 years, I expect it. So it's kind of built in. The challenge now is that I really believe that climate conditions are changing. I've watched the weather very closely for 25 years. The winds are faster than they were. We're not getting the type of ideal ballooning weather that we got 20 years ago. We're still getting flights in, just not as many. Another challenge is really having enough help. This is a very labor-intensive job. I mean, with my balloon, it's me and generally 3 or 4 crew people. And they have to be there at 4:30 in the morning on a Tuesday morning, because that's when the weather's good. And that's been a little bit of a challenge, but honestly, I probably do better than most. We really never have to cancel flights due to lack of labor, due to lack of the team. And we've got a very experienced crew, so people see that. I get more responses about how well my crew does than I do me. And I think that's a reflection on the whole team, because a lot of balloon pilots, they're the pilot and you're the crew, and there's kind of a division. And I look at it as we're a team. Yes, my job is flying the balloon, but your job is just as important as mine. And having that kind of approach to the team aspect, I think, has changed a lot of things for the team.
That's actually very similar to the airline industry, because in the past, it was everybody would listen to, the whole crew would listen to the main pilot, the chief pilot. I'm not sure what they call him, but they were analyzing a whole bunch of crashes. The industry was having issues, and it was a lot of people weren't willing to challenge the pilot, even though they knew something was going on. And so they had to retrain the entire industry to be a crew, like a real team, a top-down centralized hierarchy.
Absolutely. I'll be on the launch field engaged in setting up the balloon, flight operations, And inevitably, I'll have a crew person tap me on the shoulder and say, I want you to be aware of this, and show me maybe there's a hole, that we picked up, stick went through the balloon or something. And I can assess, well, that's nothing. We're fine there. Or, hey, could you see that behind us? And maybe there's now a thunderstorm that popped up in just the time that we got to the field, and it wasn't predicted. So they're aware of all of those things, and they're watching them because I only have 2 eyes. And with 5 of us watching all of that, and I'm always thankful for the input. So,
and I'm sure they're thankful that you accept that input too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Very cool. So, what have been, I guess, some of the lowest lows of your life?
I think some of the low lows is that. And a lot of entrepreneurs face this. It's like a kid. My business is like a baby, right? And honestly, sometimes it's hard for people who are not in your life to understand that. And I'm talking about dating. I've had a few, girlfriends and dates and stuff. And that's been the challenge, is that I have a mission. And my mission is this company, that I've created from nothing. And sometimes that challenges, how do you manage all of that? Because it's pretty intense when I get going, and if you haven't bought into it as a potential, partner or whatever, it can be really hard, and that's a challenge. So I've spent a lot of time alone just because, I am, this business side. During the summers, I work 90 hours a week between my full-time job and ballooning. And, I don't know, I'll be 60 in February, so maybe it's time to slow down a little bit. That was part of kind of taking this summer as a sabbatical a little bit. Was to really, really evaluate where am I? What do I want to do? I'm turning 60. I love this. I'd like to fly until I'm at least 75. There's an award you get for flying 40 years safely from the Balloon Federation of America. And that's one of my goals, is to secure that.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And I didn't start till I was 33, so I'll have to be at least 73 before I can,
You'll get it.
I'll get there.
Regarding that low, though, it's kind of like a dog. If you're dating someone, they don't like your dog. It's like, okay, well, it's not the dog that's going to go. Exactly.
This might be a little more personal, but I've never felt that a person's mission has to be their significant other. Now, let me. I think that that's an important part, but your mission is your mission. That's your life, And the goal is to try to find somebody whose mission and your mission kind of mesh. And that you don't mind if they give up a night on a Friday night because they've got something that they have to do for their mission, because you're supporting their mission. And they're supporting yours, but I don't think it should be the people's mission on each other, right? There should be something that kind of, I don't know.
Well, it's kind of like in a dating or in any relationship, you want 2 whole people to come together.
Right.
It's not you don't want to have 2 halves, and now your job is to make that other person whole. That's doomed from the get-go.
And I think this is something that is not just a something that I'm dealing with. I mean, I think a lot of entrepreneurs deal with this, because if you're a true entrepreneur, that inner drive for manifesting that business and your purpose in that business, I don't know where it comes from. I mean, sometimes I wish I was different. My dad would always say, oh yeah, so-and-so and so lost their job. I'm like, oh, they should start a business. He goes, that's always your response. He says, you don't understand that not everybody's like you are. He said, you basically came out of the womb starting businesses. And he's right. I mean, I created my first business at the age of 11. And I had employees. I was 12 and I had employees. So I don't understand that, but because it's an inner thing, right? Yeah.
I love that. So what has been, what's one of your highest highs?
I placed second in the U.S. Nationals in the B division, not the A big guys. You have to devote yourself to that, exclusively. But being able to finish in the top, 5, 2 or 3 years in a row, with a big balloon. My balloon's bigger than most balloons that people compete in. That was huge. Being recognized. So I had a lot of people. This was a huge high, and we didn't even fly this year much. I mean, so many people come up tell me, we missed the balloons. We haven't seen you guys up in the air this summer. Oh. Is everything okay? Really concerned.
Yeah.
I think that might have been one of the highest highs this year was being missed. Because we didn't get very many flights in, and we really kept a low profile this year. But I've had so many people that stop me in the grocery store. You're the balloon guy, right? A lot of in town, sometimes people don't know my name. They just call me the balloon guy. Oh yeah, that's the balloon guy. So that was a huge high because for probably the first 10 years that we were in Lake Geneva, nobody knew who we were. They didn't. There was no value to what we did.
Mm-hmm.
I think Visit Lake Geneva, when they started promoting us as one of the kind of big attractions, was huge. There's a huge acknowledgement that we're not Gage Marine, we're not the Lake Geneva Cruise Lines. Those guys they're great. We're much smaller.
Yeah.
But the attention we bring to Lake Geneva is oversized because balloons are cool.
Yes.
And social media is great for hot air ballooning, man. I put those videos and photos of balloons up on my social media pages. People go nuts over them. And that has a positive effect for Lake Geneva. It puts Lake Geneva on the map.
Very cool.
It helps too. It's been there a long time. But it is cool that Lake Geneva is recognized as a ballooning community now.
Well, thank you for contributing to that.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's something that most people don't know about you?
Some people know about me. Let's see. Well, but most people don't know. I do play harmonica with some of the local bands. I just started that like 3 or 4 years ago. I'd never been a musician in my life at all. And I love music, though, and decided that I was going to learn a musical instrument.
You're always learning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's always a work in progress. I'm never going to stop learning. I figure, though, at some point, they're going to take the keys away from me with the balloon, and they're going to say, okay, Grandpa, you're done. As long as I can suck and blow, you can prop me up in the corner with a harmonica, and I'm good to go, right? So I can probably do that till I'm like 80 or 85. So
I love that. And you can fit the harmonica in your pocket. You can't put the balloon in your pocket. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. No, a lot of people don't know that about me. My very first ambition in life was to be a horse race announcer. So I grew up in a racetrack. Our family was in thoroughbred racing, and I loved the guy who called the races. I would go to town and listen to that guy call those races every night at the racetrack, and that was really the first thing I ever wanted to do. Never got to do it, but I would do it on my own and drive my mom and dad and my sisters crazy. Please stop. But that was my first goal in life, was to be a race course announcer.
So that was probably one of your best childhood memories then.
Yeah.
Being on the tracks.
Oh yeah. I'm working with my dad, my uncles, my grandpa, my cousins. It was a true family business, and it was a 24/7, 365, business. And that may explain some of my drive with ballooning.
How is a tracks at 24/7?
Yeah, well, you got to bring those horses home at the end of the season, and they get fed and watered and muck stalls.
But that's the horse owner's job,
that's
not
ours. We were the horse owners and trainers.
Oh, I did not realize that. Okay.
We bred our own horses. We raced them. We owned them. We trained them. We didn't train for other.
Okay, that is a 24/7 business.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So that's a part of it, though, is the work ethic. I mean, if you're going to be an entrepreneur and do that, you have to have a strong ethic, for work. And my dad taught that. I mean, I didn't really have a choice when I was a kid, but now I'm thankful. I mean, now I look back at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had the best childhood. But I was working almost all the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a lot of work.
I'll bet.
But it was a lot of family time too. We didn't go to Disney. We didn't go on 3 vacations the entire time I grew up. But I was with my dad and my grandpa constantly, doing stuff on the farm. So
they're the ones that made the biggest impact on your life?
Oh yeah, no question. I mean, my business sense comes from my grandpa. He was an entrepreneur. My dad's a hard worker. My sense of justice and my philosophy on life and who I am comes from my mom. I mean, she was the conscience behind making sure that I was an appropriate person and well-mannered and knew what was right and what was wrong. And still to this day, when I'm evaluating a business decision and there's a moral implication, my mom's voice pops into my head. It's just there.
I love that.
Yeah.
So in turn, if a young person asked you for life advice, what would you give them?
Well, one, don't take it too seriously. You're going to take things seriously at a young age that when you get to be a little bit older and get some reflection back on, you're going to look at it and go, why was I so upset about that? Don't be afraid to fail. Fail as much as you can. It's a numbers game. The more failures you get, the success comes, right? In sales, we're always taught, look at a no as a positive. I'm like, how can you look at a no as a positive? Because they can't say no forever. Eventually, there's going to be a yes. And once you get past the no's, that eventually that yes comes out. Don't give up, and I do get a lot of people ask me for advice. It's amazing, actually. I was a Boy Scout leader for 11, 12 years. I'm still close with almost all the boys that went through my program now. They have kids of their own. And we still employ a lot of high school and college kids at the Lake Geneva Balloon Company. And they're top-notch kids, all of them. And I get to write college recommendations, job recommendations.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's huge. And, I've raised 3 kids, but I'm still not done being a mentor to young people.
Very cool.
Do that. And it's not anything like a formal thing, right? It's just I have that interest because I do,
I love that.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy there.
So what does the future hold for you?
I really love flying balloons. I don't see myself retiring from that anytime soon after having this little bit of sabbatical this year. I started with Visit Lake Geneva last year, and I intend for this to be my last job. I know that I'll always have a presence in Lake Geneva. It's home. I think that eventually when I get to the point of thinking about slowing down a little bit, it'll be ballooning here for 5 months a year, 6 months a year, and having a camper and something to go travel for 5 or 6 months out of the year. And that to me would be the perfect life.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, so how do you want to be remembered?
I don't care. It's such an ego thing for people. I want to be remembered for this or that. It'll be very personal. It'll be people who said, "Oh, remember when we went on that hot air balloon ride? That was such a great time." It'll be very much like that.
Okay.
There's not going to be any kind of statue or any kind of legacy that I leave, except for the 3 young people that I helped, raise and bring into this world, and how they remember me is the most important thing. 2 generations out, nobody ever remembers you unless you have a name on a building or something. And I never had any kind of inkling that I want that. Let's go back to the dust.
I love that. So what do you love most about Lake Geneva?
Man. I love that we have a small town, but has this outsized opportunities for doing really cool stuff. And I tell people all the time, you can walk through downtown Lake Geneva and hear 5 or 6 languages. You can see a Harley come by, an old beat-up pickup truck, and then a Jaguar. It's this collection of people that you just don't see in a lot of towns. And so I love that. I'm a people person. I love going to town on that. Just the opportunities that we have here. And it's gorgeous.
It is.
Right?
All season.
We're lucky.
Every season.
Yeah, every season.
Yes.
I go out that lake all year round on the shore path, and I'm like, I live here. This is, and people are jealous of that. I get that all the time. Oh, you got such a great place. One of my fraternity brothers from way back in college, him and his wife just retired. They lived in downtown Chicago their entire, lives. And they moved to Lake Geneva, and they love it. He told me, he goes, oh my gosh. He goes, it's so nice to walk downtown and people say hi to you.
That's cool.
You don't feel afraid. And he says, we're so welcome and there's so many things to do. And so I'm seeing it a lot now through their eyes, because they're new. And it's nice because sometimes you forget how special a place you really have and to, kind of get a little bit distance or see it through somebody else's eyes.
For sure.
And we're so fortunate to live in Lake Geneva. I don't want to leave because this is home.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite restaurant?
It's what you should ask. I will go, I love everything. So I love House of Bikini for simple, really good handheld foods, right? Fresh. Of course, I love Magpies because, they're buds of mine and I think they've got a different term. Sabai because I love Thai food.
I love them.
And I love sushi. But that's the whole point. I mean, you can go to Soper one night, you can go to Lake City Social one night, and you're going to get different levels, of course. Some are higher cuisine than others. But the quality is always really good at these places. And now that I'm involved and I know the owners and stuff, it's even more fun, because you can stop in and somebody come by and say hi, and it's a nice environment to know the people that you're dealing with every day.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite place to go?
To go like
Just
in
to
town,
hang out.
Nothing beats Hogs and Kisses on a Wednesday night when the Blues Crew is there from 8:30 to 11:30. They've been doing it 20, 25 years. A bunch of just really cool guys and gals, and they have a love of blues music. And it's a well-hidden secret in town. I didn't know about it when I first moved here, but I like to hang out. I mean, and it's not even hanging out at Hogs, it's hanging out with the musicians, because it used to be at Harry's before it was at Hogs and Kisses. But that's kind of a hangout for me. You almost always catch me at Magpies. I think Magpies has kind of become the locals hangout, especially during the big season. So yeah, I'll be there a lot. I love their beer garden. The view of the mill race and the river you can't beat it. There's nowhere else in town that has that kind of view.
Very cool. So besides ballooning, what's your favorite thing to do?
I'm an avid backpacker. I do a lot of backpacking, camping, hiking, kayaking. I grew up with it, traveling. But I'm the kind of person who would rather travel to a national park than to a European city. Although I don't discount it. I'd love to go. There's a lot of places I want to go.
Hence the RV and being able to travel. I get it now. Okay.
Yeah. I spent my whole life outdoors camping and doing that kind of thing, and my kids are the same way. So that's if I could travel in an RV and just go to weird places and fun places, that to me would be a great life.
Very cool. So how would you like to see our area neighborhood improve?
We've got a lot of challenges in this town, really, and there's a division, between the people who support kind of the tourism industry that we have and always have had.
Oh yeah.
And then others who don't like that type of business. For me, and I'm speaking only on behalf of myself here, I really think that we need to embrace it more. We need to become more business friendly as a government and as a community. We need to support our local businesses. We're unique that we're not covered up in all these big shopping centers and just faceless kind of businesses that every town has, right?
Yep.
I really want to see us look at the entrepreneurs and try to support them as much as we can. The strength of this community comes from having a healthy business environment to support it. Because that's how people rise up in this world, is that they either start a business or they work for a business that is growing and adding value to their skill set and paying them better. That money flows right back into the city. So I'm probably an outlier in that area, but I really do believe that we need to become more business friendly as a community and more aware of that tourism is our industry.
Well, that opens up a bigger can of worms, and I completely agree. But part of it has to do with improved parking, infrastructure, not affordable housing, but workforce housing. Those are going to be two huge barriers that I don't think we're going to get buy-in until those issues become or are dealt with. What are your thoughts?
Totally agree. There's no question that affordable housing for all of us. I mean, I do pretty well. I can't afford to buy a house in Lake Geneva. Would not be able to afford to do it. The reason is because I'm going to have resources to go off and travel. And, I've made my choice. But I think of the people who work in our restaurants, the people who work as middle management in some of the companies in town, and entry level workers, and they're not able to do that. So affordable housing is a huge issue. Parking, that's going to take a major investment of resources and infrastructure, and we're going to need politicians and community members who have the guts to do it, and can push past the naysayers who say we don't need it, because we do. It's a huge issue. I understand the political will not to do it. It needs to change. I'm being a little more opinionated than I probably would in general, but I think you hit the two big areas too that I would look at and say, if we're really going to succeed in this community, those two issues have to be addressed.
Well, it's just, the NIMBYism, not in my backyard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, it's not political, I think. It's community. It's how can we grow and sustain our community and be, inclusive of everyone that lives here, all of our Lake Geneva community, not just a small select amount of it. So
I agree. And I think that I think that we need the leadership that's going to help us as a community decide what that's going to be, taking into account all of those various stakeholders and their viewpoints. And I don't know that we've really had that since I've been here. And it's not a criticism of anybody. That's a hard job. I would never want to be involved in that area. I'm really good in the private sector and supporting where I can. But we do need to have a city government that's able to respond to that stuff and provide the leadership and kind of the collaboration that has to happen in order for it to be successful.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
So switching back to your business, is there anything exciting coming along? I know it's not the ballooning season now, but what's exciting that maybe you want to announce or drop?
I don't think we really have anything big to announce yet. I've always wanted to do a hot air balloon festival in Lake Geneva.
That would be so cool. I know they were doing one, I think, in Albuquerque or New Mexico.
Albuquerque is the largest. It's in October, first full week in October, 9 days. Huge economic impact to the community. Hundreds of thousands of people go. We could do it and do it very well here in Lake Geneva, but you got to pick the right time of the year to do it.
Yes.
So that we get flights in.
If they can do Country Thunder, they can do that festival.
Yeah, definitely. I won't be doing it on the weekend of Country Thunder because we always have bad weather that weekend. But for sure, that's one of those things that I've run Winterfest. I've managed Winterfest. I've managed some of the events for Visit Lake Geneva for the Lake Geneva Balloon Company. I'd like to be able to kind of look at a balloon festival down the line and bring something like that to the community. I think it'd be a huge hit. That would be so cool. Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. Very cool. So what are the best ways for clients or customers to get a hold of you? Yeah. The best way is probably through our website at lakegenevaballoon.com. Okay. Also, we have a pretty significant social media presence on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Facebook is probably our best at like reaching out to us and communicating and following us. We get a lot of people who follow our adventures and the photos and the videos that we put up during the season, and they feel like they're a part of it. So that's probably one of the best ways to stay in touch with us. Well, very cool. Well, thank you for your time and this great interview. You are a fabulous storyteller. Really appreciate it. My dad taught me well. He's a good storyteller too. Thanks, Jade. It's really nice to sit down and talk to you. Absolutely. And getting to know you as well. Yeah. So, thanks. Yes.